a week of head-snapping developments in the impeachment investigation. The first key witness testimony to Congress. The first release of text messages from administration officials broadly confirming the pressure campaign on Ukraine outlined in the original whistleblower complaint. That brazen public request from President Trump calling on China to investigate Joe Biden. Late Friday, the first subpoenas to the White House, plus a new request for documents from Vice President Pence. And this morning, more breaking news. ABC News has learned that the legal team representing the first whistleblower is now representing a second whistleblower. Attorney Mark Zaid told me that this second whistleblower is a member of the intelligence community with first-hand information on some of the allegations at issue. The second whistleblower has been interviewed by the Inspector General, and his attorneys say they have the full protection of the whistleblower law because they provided information directly to the Inspector General. The second whistleblower has not yet communicated directly with the congressional committees conducting this investigation. I want to dig into this with our Chief White House Correspondent John Karl, our Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas. And Pierre, under this reading of the law, several other officials could claim whistleblower protections.
George, this is critical. We know from the whistleblower's initial complaint that there were at least 6 other people that he was gathering information from. So you have the potential that those people could be witnesses coming before Congress. And George, what is key here? These are people who can not only corroborate the whistleblower's account, but they can add layers of additional detail.
And some firsthand information, according to Mark Zaid right there. John Karl, President Trump was tweeting about the possibility of a second whistleblower last night.
He sure was, George. We've reached out with this latest news. The official comment from the White House is no comment. But late last night, the president did tweet about reports there might be a second whistleblower, saying the first so-called secondhand information whistleblower got my phone conversation almost completely wrong. So now word is they are going to the bench and another whistleblower is coming in from deep state. Also with secondhand info. Meet with Shifty, keep them coming. Now, George, a couple of quick fact checks on this. First of all, as you just reported, we are told that this second whistleblower, in fact, had firsthand information, not secondhand information. And the second thing is the first whistleblower's complaint turned out to be quite consistent with what we know about the call based on the transcript, reconstructed transcript released by the White House.
And, John, the president may have been responding to that New York Times report about the possibility of a second whistleblower that came out on Friday. But Mark Zaid, the attorney, told me he doesn't even know if his client is the whistleblower referred to in the New York Times. Meantime, the White House is seeming to defy the subpoena from Congress.
Absolutely, George. What I am told from senior officials is the White House has absolutely no intention of cooperating with the congressional committees on this unless Nancy Pelosi first holds a vote formally opening an impeachment inquiry. Here's the way one White House official told me, put it to me. You don't get to have an impeachment by holding a press conference. We are not going to participate in a show trial. What officials are saying is, without a formal vote by the House, the White House is deprived certain rights they would have in an impeachment process, including the right to have White House counsel present at all depositions by congressional committees.
So far, the Speaker has resisted that vote. What do we expect this week on Capitol Hill, Pierre?
So, George, it's going to be a key week on Capitol Hill. Gordon Sondland, who is the ambassador to the European Union, he's expected to be deposed on Capitol Hill. Also, the ambassador to the Ukraine, who was fired in the midst of all this controversy, her name is Marie Yovanovitch. She's expected to testify as well, George. So, a key week on Capitol Hill.
Okay, Pierre, John, thanks very much. Let's bring in our legal experts on impeachment. Barbara Comstock, former Republican member of Congress who served as chief counsel for the House Government Reform Committee during President Clinton's impeachment. And Kate Shaw, who served as legal counsel in the Obama White House, now a professor of constitutional law at Cardozo Law School. You know, and Kate, let me begin with you. When I was speaking with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi this week, she said a resolution is not necessary, but there has been a resolution for every other presidential impeachment.
Right. So I think Speaker Pelosi is clearly correct that a resolution isn't required. It's not required by the Constitution or the House's rules, but you're right, it's historical practice to do one of these resolutions. So I think even if there's no requirement, there are a couple of advantages to the House to doing a resolution. One, I think it calls the White House's bluff on some of these document disputes. The White House says, we're not going to produce anything until you do a resolution. Well, you've taken that argument off the table if you pass a resolution. And two, I think to the extent that some of these disputes end up in court, I think the House's position would be strengthened if they have embarked on the same kind of resolution that has predated other kinds of presidential impeachment processes. So there are, I think, prudential arguments for doing the resolution.
And it does, as we've said, give the White House some protections.
Yes, and during the Clinton impeachment, Chairman Henry Hyde, who is the Republican chairman, went back and looked at what Chairman Rodino did during the Nixon impeachment and virtually replicated it. So we need to have a vote on the House floor, have that resolution, and then be able to move forward so the public feels that it's fair. Because with some of the things that Adam Schiff has done already, the parody that he did, that certainly a Peter Rodino or say a Barbara Jordan would never have made a statement like that. That's really undermined his credibility, as well as lying about the whistleblower. So I think they need to get this back on track and have those rights and have that vote in the House.
Meantime, House Speaker Pelosi has said she wants a streamlined process. But is the president now courting new articles of impeachment with this call to China and Ukraine to investigate the Bidens?
Well, yeah, they can include anything in their impeachment things, the obstruction. So yes, and I think the kind of things that he's criticizing Mitt Romney for saying, even Tucker Carlson has said the same thing. So I think we need to, get back to focusing on what are the issues here. We're going to hear from firsthand witnesses, and that's important. The whistleblowers and other whistleblowers that may come forward, they'll have information and guidance, but what the impeachment committee can do once they have that vote is hear firsthand from people who were involved directly in these things.
And Kate, what does this committee need to do to build their case, to establish their case? Do they need to establish there's a direct quid pro quo between the president and the Ukrainian president?
So I think President Trump, would clearly like this debate to be framed in those terms. Was there a quid pro quo? And he hopes that the answer is that no smoking gun evidence will emerge to establish a quid pro quo. So I'd say a couple of things. One, I think that sort of fundamentally misunderstands the nature of impeachment. Impeachment is not about ordinary criminal offenses. Some things that aren't crimes could be impeachable, and not all crimes should be impeachable. So I think that impeachment is really about abuse of authority, right? Political misconduct. And so I think the House would be well served to focus on that as opposed to getting caught up in these debates about quid pro quo. All that said, if they want to build an article around a quid pro quo, I think they already have a lot of evidence that supports that case, just from the call transcript, the whistleblower complaint, and the additional text messages that we have seen emerge. And of course, more evidence is likely to come out.
And they've now said that any form of non-cooperation by the White House is an obstruction article.
Well, they did do that during the Nixon impeachment. But I think the quid pro quo was very difficult to prove. And again, that's where Adam Schiff has kind of raised the bar again and put expectations out there. So that's why we need to hear directly from these firsthand witnesses. And you're right, the impeachment can be on anything. This needs to be taken seriously. And I wanted to quote from Barbara Jordan, because when you go back, she said, "We are trying to be big because the task before us is big." We need to all, both sides need to take this very seriously and have a process, have rights for the minority, have rights for the president's counsel, and take this in a very serious manner.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.